and my thoughts keep telling me to get me home, but my balls keep telling me to let me just let me That clock keeps ticking like a metronome, and my thoughts keep telling me to get me home, but my balls keep telling me to let me fuck all that shit, just let me go. Owers and tastemakers make us no chaser, gets the blood flowing like a fucking pacemaker. Cut the middle.
Welcome to my first review of anything really on this channel. I'm going to be covering a manga / anime I'm all too familiar with, starting with the first part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Phantom Blood. Now, everyone knows of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, right? Like, everyone heard about it. People on Twitter are annoying about it. Say what you will. Now, I have pretty mixed feelings about this part. Mostly because it's kind of a weird part. It's really short. It's only 9 episodes, what, 50 manga chapters? You could read this in like a day. You could watch this in a day. But it actually accomplishes quite a bit for its length. Now, a lot of people will say that it's dry. The main character, Jonathan Joestar, is really boring. Now, I actually completely agree with that. It's pretty boring. But I've got to say, when this came out, when it was adapted in 2012, not when the manga came out, it came out among a lot of anime that were kind of more edgy, like Tokyo Ghoul or Attack on Titan. Now, I'll admit, JoJo's did come out a little bit before then those two came out, but still, I think that's still a valid argument, that it kind of blew a breath of fresh air among all these edgier shows and kind of brought back the standard shonen, which is always at the top. Like, no one can argue that the standard shonen is always going to be the #1 most best-selling, most popular type of anime format, with things like One Piece, Dragon Ball, Naruto. Everyone knows those three, the big three, and recently My Hero Academia, Black Clover, things like that. The Promised Neverland. Alright, I'm gonna stop rambling. Back to JoJo Part 1. Now, this part is pretty ass compared to the rest of JoJo's. It's like pretty shit. I will say that. I think everyone can agree with that. That's not an argument. But I will say some things that I do like about it include the way that Hamon is used in really creative ways. Now, this is way more applicable to Part 2. Joseph Joestar, he goes crazy with the Hamon. Like, that stuff is entertaining as hell. Part 2 is one of the best parts, I will say that right off the bat, but this is about Part 1, not Part 2. Dio is a pretty interesting character. He will kind of toy with your emotions, if that makes sense. He will make you feel really frustrated and make you feel bad and sympathize with Jonathan, but at the same time, you really can't get enough of him. Like, he is pretty entertaining to watch. He's a pretty entertaining character, and he has a pretty good backstory. Like, he was raised like shit. Like, Dario was a horrible father, and he was abusive, he was alcoholic, all the bad shit. And he kind of has a reason to be like a dickhead to Jonathan, but you know, it's a story about Jonathan. It's gonna be in his favor, obviously. Jonathan is also like a foil to Dio. That's pretty standard. Like, he's a foil to Dio, yeah. He has this mentality of like chivalry or being a gentleman. With that situation with Irina where she was getting bullied, that's like where we learn about that, where their relationship starts, right? But what I find interesting is that he keeps that mentality all the way to the end. In his deathbed, or his watery grave on the ship, he is like, Dio, you've defeated me. I will accept that defeat. And he just embraces Dio. He is gonna be the more mature person and just embrace it and hug him there at his death. And obviously Irina gets away. We go into stuff about Part 3 with the coffin in the water, which I don't get. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what, they were in the same coffin, Irina and Dio. Like, he was like in a lower layer. Okay, whatever. Enough of that. Back to Part 1. Part 1 is pretty good at setting up the rest of JoJo's. Obviously, it's the beginning. It has to be good at setting it up. Well, it does a pretty decent job. Although it feels kind of unrelated in the themes and the ways the character develops. I think it's pretty good at going from Part 1 to Part 2, there's a connection between Joseph and Jonathan. Yeah, it's a pretty good job. It does a pretty good job of doing that, but it still doesn't make up for its other cons. Another thing is, part 1 is only 9 episodes. If you don't like part 1, you can pretty easily binge watch it. As I mentioned earlier, you can watch it in like a day. In like, yeah, pretty much a day, 4 hours, something like that. Now, on the note of other characters, Will A. Zeppeli. He's pretty interesting. He's kind of Jonathan's mentor when it comes to Hamon. He kind of trains him, and there's like a connection between Dio and the Zeppeli. Or no, not Dio and Zeppeli. The Joestars and the Zeppelis later on. And I think Will A. Zeppeli is pretty bad Zeppeli compared to Caesar and Gyro. There's only 3 Zeppelis, but you know, or 3 like main Zeppelis that are in the story. I think he's the worst one, definitely. I think Gyro's the best one because, you know, I'm a Part 7 fanboy. Now, onto some things I think are bad about Part 1. There are a lot. Obviously, it's my least favorite part, probably. I've got to say. The characters are pretty bland. I mentioned before about how it's like a typical shonen. It's about friendship, not friendship, that's kind of stretching, but it's about being a good person, being noble, having good morals, all that standard stuff that you learn about in like elementary school, but you know, it's there. My least favorite character, and I'm gonna just like stop with the memes, Speedwagon. Speedwagon is a pretty shit character. Like, he comes in after Jonathan goes to Ogre Street to get the medicine from the Asian dude. That was pretty, like, Speedwagon's a pretty weird guy. He just exists pretty much to be a narrator, and there was this one part where he was like, I don't want to be useless, I want to help you guys out, I don't want to just be standing around. Well, that's exactly what you do, you stand around all the damn time. Like, can you please do something? I get it, you like thawed out Zeppeli's arm that one time in the fight with the zombies and Dio and some shit like that, but that doesn't really make a difference. Like, sure, you saved him an arm, that was pretty sick, yeah, good job on you, but like, that's the one good thing you've done the entire part. I might be like misremembering like one thing, because like I genuinely can't remember like a good thing that Speedwagon has done other than helping Zeppeli in that one situation with his frozen arm. Another problem I have with part 1, and this adds on to its blandness, is the fact that it has pretty much no comedy. There's like, I don't remember like them making a single joke the entire time. Like, the closest thing to a joke was when like Zeppeli or something asked, how many people have you killed? And the Dio was like, how many pieces of bread have you eaten in your life? That was like semi-funny, but like, you know, not that funny at all, to be honest. Now, some things more concerning the adaptation and the actual anime/animation of JoJo's Part 1. This is pretty standard for all of JoJo anime, but it's a really good adaptation. Like, David Productions does a phenomenal job with like the random color palette switches. The opening is amazing. Like the Sono Chino Sadame, like everyone knows that. It's hype. It's great. I will give that to Part 1. Just the anime, obviously. Now, that's pretty much all I have to say about Part 1. This is my first review. I might make this into a series, whether I feel like it or if this video does good somehow. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. And thanks for watching, and see ya.